The bridge of the human warship Cerberus was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Stars moved slowly past the windows as the massive ship traveled through space. Officer Martinez sat at his desk, listening to radio signals from across the galaxy. Most days he heard nothing important. Today was different. A weak signal came through his headphones. The sound was broken and hard to understand. Martinez turned up the volume and listened closer. Someone was calling for help, but the voice was not human. He ran the signal through the computer to clean it up. The voice became clearer. It spoke in the language of the Velati, a peaceful alien race that lived far from human space. Martinez had studied their language in school. What he heard made his blood run cold. "Please, anyone who can hear this message," the voice said. "Our world is dying. The Krorvak have come. They burn our forests. They take our children. We cannot fight them. We are not warriors. Please help us." Martinez called his captain right away. Captain Torres came to the communication station and listened to the message. Her face grew dark as she heard the Velati's words. The Velati were plant-like beings who spent their time growing beautiful gardens and studying medicine. They had never hurt anyone. "Play it again," Torres said. The message repeated. This time more details came through. The Krorvak Dominion had invaded the Velati homeworld 3 weeks ago. The reptilian aliens were known across the galaxy as slave traders and conquerors. They took over weak planets and forced the people to work in mines and factories. The Velati described terrible things. Krorvak soldiers burned down ancient forests that had grown for thousands of years. They destroyed cities made of living crystal. Worst of all, they were taking Velati children away from their families for unknown purposes. "Send this to Admiral Chen right away," Torres ordered. Admiral Sarah. Chen was the commander of the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. Her ships patrolled the outer edge of human space, protecting Earth's colonies from pirates and hostile aliens. Chen was known throughout the fleet as a fair but tough leader. She had fought in 3 major wars and never lost a battle. When Chen heard the Velati message, she stood very still for a long time. Her officers waited quietly. They knew their admiral was thinking hard about something important. Chen remembered the Velati well. 5 years ago, a human colony ship had gotten lost in space. A deadly plague had spread through the ship, killing hundreds of people. The colonial government had sent out desperate calls for help, but no one answered. The Galactic Council said it was too dangerous to help. Only the Velati had come. They brought medicine made from their sacred plants. They worked day and night to save the human colonists. When the plague was finally stopped, the Velati asked for nothing in return. They simply said that all life was precious and should be protected. "How far is Verdania from here?" Chen asked her navigation officer. 12 days at maximum speed, Admiral." Chen looked at the star charts. Verdania was deep in uncharted space, far from any human territory. If her fleet went there, they would be alone. No other human ships could help them if things went wrong. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "I'm getting reports from our listening posts. The Galactic Council is still debating what to do about the Krorvak invasion. They've been talking for 3 weeks." Chen's jaw tightened. The Galactic Council was made up of the oldest and most powerful alien races in the galaxy. They made decisions very slowly and carefully. They preferred diplomacy and peaceful solutions. But while they talked, the Velati were suffering. "What about other fleets?" Chen asked. "Is anyone else responding to the distress call?" "No, Admiral. The other races say it's not their problem. The Drakmari say they're too busy. The Thessian Republic says they don't have enough ships. The Zentari won't even answer our calls." Chen walked to the large window that looked out into space. She could see her other ships flying in formation around the Cerberus. 15 powerful warships with brave crews who trusted her leadership. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were humans, descendants of a species that had survived ice ages, world wars, and the near destruction of their home planet. Other aliens called humans Deathworlders. Earth was considered one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. It had violent weather, deadly animals, and diseases that could kill most alien species. Only the strongest and most stubborn creatures could survive there. Humans had not just survived, they had become the dominant species. This reputation made other aliens nervous around humans. They saw humans as useful allies but dangerous enemies. Most preferred to keep humans at a distance. But Chen knew that their harsh background had given humans something special: the ability to protect others who could not protect themselves. "Admiral," Captain Torres said quietly, What are your orders? Chen thought about the Velothi children being taken from their families. She thought about the beautiful forests being burned. She thought about a peaceful people who had once saved human lives without asking for anything in return. Send a message to all ships, Chen said. We're changing course for Verdania. Maximum speed. Admiral, her tactical officer said, that's outside our patrol area. Fleet Command will want to know why we're leaving our position. Then tell them the truth, Chen replied. Tell them we're going to help our friends. The bridge crew began working quickly to prepare for the journey. Navigation officers plotted the fastest route to Verdania. Engineering teams prepared the ships faster than light drives. Medical officers checked their supplies in case they found wounded Velothi. As the fleet changed direction, Chen sent a coded message back to Earth Fleet Command. She explained the situation and her decision to intervene. She knew some admirals would be angry with her for acting without orders, but Chen also knew that by the time Earth's government decided what to do, the Velothi might all be dead. Message from the fleet, Admiral. The communications officer reported. All captains confirm they're ready to follow you to Verdania. Chen smiled for the first time since hearing the distress call. Her crews were good people. They understood what was at stake. They knew that sometimes doing the right thing was more important than following rules. Take us into hyperspace, Chen ordered. The stars outside stretched into lines of light as the human fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, Earth space grew smaller. Ahead of them lay unknown dangers and a race that needed their help. Chen stood on the bridge as her ships raced through hyperspace. She thought about what they might find at Verdania. The Korvac were known to be ruthless fighters with powerful weapons. Her fleet was strong, but they would be outnumbered and far from home. Still, Chen felt no doubt about her decision. The Velothi had saved human lives when no one else would help. Now it was time for humans to return that favor. The galaxy was about to learn something important about the species from the dangerous world called Earth. They were about to learn that humans never forgot their friends, and they never abandoned those who needed protection. The fleet raced through space toward a confrontation that would change everything. Word spread through the human fleet like fire through dry grass. On every ship, sailors and soldiers heard about their new mission. They were going to save the Velothi from the Korvac slavers. The news brought different reactions from different people, but one feeling was the same on every ship: anger. Captain Rodriguez commanded the assault carrier Valkyrie. His ship carried 2,000 Marines trained for ground combat. When he heard about the Velothi situation, Rodriguez called his officers together for a meeting. I want volunteers only, Rodriguez told his men. This mission is dangerous. We're going far from home to fight an enemy we've never faced before. Anyone who wants to stay behind can do so without shame. Every single Marine on the ship volunteered. Not one person asked to stay behind. On the battleship Thor's Hammer, Chief Engineer Watson was telling his crew about the Velothi. Watson had been on the colony ship that the Velothi had saved from the plague 5 years ago. His own daughter had been dying when the Velothi doctors arrived with their plant medicine. Those green people saved my little girl's life, Watson said. They worked for 3 days straight without sleeping. When my daughter finally got better, the Velothi doctor just smiled and said all children deserve to live. Now those same people are being hurt, and their children are being taken away. Watson's engineering crew listened with growing anger. These were tough men and women who kept the ship's weapons and engines running. They came from the factories and shipyards of Earth where people learned to work hard and fight for what was right. What can we do? Asked one young technician. We can make sure our weapons work perfectly, Watson replied. We can make sure our engines give the captain every bit of speed he needs. We can make sure that when we reach Verdania, we're ready to show the Korvac what happens when you hurt the innocent. Similar conversations were happening on every ship in the fleet. Admiral Chen had sent the Velothi distress call to all her captains. She wanted every person in the fleet to understand exactly what they were fighting for. On the destroyer Lightning Strike, the crew was listening to intercepted Korvac communications. The ship's intelligence officer, Lieutenant Park, had been working all night to decode the enemy messages. What she found made everyone sick to their stomachs. The Korvac were not just invading Verdania, they were destroying it. War Master Thekvar, the Korvac commander, was bragging to his officers about how easy it was to break the Velothi spirit. The plant-like aliens were so peaceful that they barely fought back even when their children were taken. Listen to this, Park said. playing a translated recording. The plant eaters are even weaker than we thought. Yesterday we took 100 of their younglings for the science ships. The adults just stood there crying. They didn't even try to stop us. The bridge crew of the lightning strike listened in silence. Captain Kim, a veteran of the Proxima War, had to leave the bridge for a few minutes. When he came back, his face was like stone. "Send a message to Admiral Chen," Kim said. "Tell her the lightning strike is ready for combat operations." News of the mission reached Earth through military channels. At fleet headquarters, some admirals were worried about Chen's decision to leave her patrol area without orders. But when they heard the details about the Velothi situation, most of them supported her choice. Admiral Morrison, Chen's old teacher at the Naval Academy, sent a coded message to the fleet. "Sarah, you're doing the right thing. Earth stands behind you. Give those reptilian bastards hell." More help was coming. Colonel Maria Nakamura, known throughout the military as Iron Wolf, heard about the mission and immediately contacted Admiral Chen. Nakamura was officially retired, but she was a legend among human ground forces. She had led Marines in the bloodiest battles of the last 20 years. "Admiral," Nakamura said over the communication link, "I'm calling in some favors. I can have 3 companies of veteran Marines meet you at the Epsilon station. These are good soldiers who know how to fight in space and on the ground." Chen was grateful for the help. The Korvac were known to be fierce warriors. Every extra soldier could make the difference between victory and defeat. As the fleet traveled through hyperspace, more intelligence came in from human spy networks. The Korvac Dominion was larger and more powerful than anyone had realized. They controlled 15 star systems and had enslaved 6 different alien races. Their military was built around fear and brutality, but the humans were learning something else about the Korvac. They had always fought against weak, peaceful races. They had never faced an enemy that could fight back with equal ferocity. The Korvac were bullies, and bullies often folded when someone stood up to them. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, the fleet's chief intelligence officer, briefed Admiral Chen on what they knew about Korvac tactics. "They rely on shock and overwhelming force," Jackson explained. "They hit fast and hard, then expect their enemies to surrender. They're not used to long, drawn-out battles." "What about their technology?" Chen asked. "Advanced, but not more than ours. Their ships are heavily armed, but not very maneuverable. Their ground forces use energy weapons and powered armor, but nothing we haven't seen before." Chen nodded. "What's their biggest weakness?" Jackson smiled. "They underestimate their enemies. The Korvac think they're the strongest warriors in the galaxy. They've never fought humans before." On the medical ship Mercy, Dr. Sarah Kim was preparing for what might come. She had treated wounded soldiers before, but this mission felt different. The stories about what the Korvac were doing to Velothi children made her think of her own daughter back on Earth. Dr. Kim's medical team was working around the clock to prepare. They set up extra beds for wounded Marines. They studied Velothi biology so they could treat any survivors they found. Most importantly, they prepared for the worst-case scenario: chemical or biological weapons used against civilians. "Doctor," one of her nurses said, "do you really think we can save them? The Velothi, I mean. We're just one fleet against an entire empire." Dr. Kim looked out at the other ships flying alongside the Mercy. She thought about the brave men and women on those ships, all volunteering to risk their lives for people they had never met. "We're not just one fleet," she said. "We're humans. We come from a world that tried to kill us for millions of years, and we survived. We've been fighting impossible odds since we first stood upright. The Korvac think they're tough because they've been picking on weaklings. They're about to learn what real toughness looks like." The fleet continued its journey through hyperspace. On every ship, humans prepared for battle in their own way. Some cleaned weapons and checked equipment. Others wrote letters to families back home. Many simply sat quietly and thought about what they were fighting for. Admiral Chen spent her time studying star charts and battle plans. She knew the Korvac would have the advantage of numbers and position. Her fleet would be outnumbered and fighting far from home. But Chen also knew something the Korvac didn't understand. Humans had been the underdogs before. They had faced extinction on their own planet and survived. They had fought wars against impossible odds and won. Most importantly, they had learned that some things were worth dying for. The protection of the innocent was one of those things. The Velothi had shown kindness to humans when they needed help. Now it was time to repay that debt. The galaxy was about to see what happened when someone threatened the friends of humanity. The fleet raced through space toward Verdania. carrying with it the hopes of a dying race and the fury of a species that never forgot its debts. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Verdania system, like sharks emerging from deep water. What they found there made even the most experienced officers feel sick to their stomachs. Verdania had once been called the Garden World. The Velothi homeworld was famous across the galaxy for its beauty. Crystal cities grew like flowers from living trees. Forests of silver and gold stretched across entire continents. The planet glowed with a soft green light that could be seen from space. Now that light was dying. Huge brown scars marked the surface where ancient forests had been cut down and burned. Mining operations had torn open the ground, leaving ugly wounds that bled smoke into the atmosphere. The crystal cities were dark, their lights extinguished. In orbit around the planet, Korvac warships moved like vultures. Their dark, angular ships were designed to look frightening. Red lights glowed along their hulls like angry eyes. Dozens of smaller vessels carried cargo up from the surface, stolen resources, and captured Velothi. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Cerberus and watched the destruction through her ship's cameras. Her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in grim silence. Everyone could see what the Korvac had done to this peaceful world. "Communications," Chen said quietly. "Open a channel to the Korvac fleet." "Channel open, Admiral." Chen's voice was calm and cold when she spoke. "Korvac vessels, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. You will immediately cease all hostile operations against the Velothi people. You will release all prisoners and withdraw from Verdania system. You have 1 hour to comply." The response came quickly. The voice that answered was deep and harsh, speaking accented English with contempt. "Human Admiral, this is War Master Thekvar of the Korvac Dominion. You have no authority in this system. The plant creatures belong to us now. Take your small fleet and leave, or join them in slavery." Chen's tactical officer whispered a report. "Admiral, I count 47 Korvac ships. We're outnumbered 3-1. Chen didn't seem to hear him. She was still staring at the damaged planet below. "War Master Thekvar, you have misunderstood the situation. I am not asking you to leave. I am telling you. The Velothi are under human protection now. Any further harm to them will be considered an act of war against Earth." Thekvar's laughter came through the speakers like the sound of grinding metal. "Protection from whom? You mammals think you are warriors? We Korvac have conquered 6 races. We have enslaved entire worlds. What can a handful of ships from one small planet do to us?" "You're about to find out," Chen replied. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for generations. Instead of attacking immediately, War Master Thekvar decided to teach the humans a lesson. He wanted to show them what happened to those who interfered with Korvac business. "Open a transmission to all frequencies," Thekvar ordered his communications officer. "I want everyone to see this." The screen on the Cerberus bridge filled with a horrific image. Thekvar was standing in what looked like a prison camp on Verdania's surface. Behind him, hundreds of Velothi civilians were kneeling in the dirt. Korvac soldiers in powered armor stood guard over them with energy weapons. "Humans," Thekvar said, "let me show you the price of defiance." The War Master gestured to his soldiers. They began pulling Velothi from the crowd. These were not soldiers or leaders. They were ordinary people. Farmers, teachers, healers. Among them were children, their large eyes wide with terror. "No," whispered someone on the bridge. Thekvar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. These plant-eaters thought someone would come to save them. They were wrong. "Just as you are wrong, humans. Watch and learn." The execution began. Korvac soldiers raised their weapons toward the helpless Velothi civilians. The camera focused on a young Velothi child who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. The child was crying, reaching for his mother who was being held back by Korvac guards. On the bridge of the Cerberus, total silence fell. Admiral Chen watched the screen with no expression on her face, but those who knew her could see the change in her eyes. Something cold and terrible was waking up behind them. The first Velothi civilian fell, then another. The camera kept rolling as Thekvar's soldiers murdered innocent people in front of the entire galaxy. The War Master was enjoying himself, thinking he was teaching the humans a lesson about Korvac power. He had no idea what he had just unleashed. "Sir," the tactical officer said very quietly. "New contacts. 3 more human ships just dropped out of hyperspace. It's Colonel Nakamura's marine companies," Chen finally spoke. Her voice was so quiet that everyone had to strain to hear it. Communications, record this message. Send it on all frequencies. She looked directly into the camera. When she spoke, her words were calm and clear. But there was something in her tone that made veteran soldiers step back from their stations. War Master Thekvar, you have made two mistakes. First, you have harmed our friends. Second, you have done so in front of humans. We are about to show you why our world was considered too dangerous for most life to survive. Chen turned to her weapons officer. All ships, battle stations, target the Korvac fleet. Admiral, the communications officer said, we're receiving surrender requests from several alien ships in the area. Non-Korvac vessels are asking permission to leave the system. Granted, Chen said. This is between us and the Korvac now. On his flagship, War Master Thekvar was beginning to realize his mistake. His intelligence officers were reporting strange energy readings from the human ships. The vessels that should have been retreating in fear were instead moving into attack formation. War Master, his tactical officer said nervously, the human ships are not behaving normally. Their formation is unlike anything in our databases. Thekvar studied the tactical display. The human ships were indeed moving strangely. Instead of the standard battle lines used by most civilized races, they were spreading out like hunters surrounding prey. Their movements seemed almost alive, organic. Sir, another officer reported, we're detecting massive energy buildups in their weapon systems. These readings are off our charts. For the first time since the battle began, Thekvar felt a touch of uncertainty. The humans were not responding like any enemy he had faced before. Most races either fled in terror or attacked in predictable patterns. These humans were doing something different. They were stalking. On the planet's surface, Korvac ground forces were reporting strange incidents. Human ships were conducting surgical strikes against military targets, but they were doing so with impossible precision. Weapon depots exploded while nearby Velati prisoners remained unharmed. Communication towers fell while hospitals were left untouched. How are they doing this? Demanded Thekvar. Our intelligence said human weapons were primitive. His science officer was studying the sensor readings with growing alarm. Sir, I think we misunderstood their technology. These aren't primitive weapons. They're precision instruments. The humans aren't trying to destroy everything. They're picking their targets with surgical accuracy. Thekvar was beginning to understand that he faced an enemy unlike any other. The Korvac way of war was simple. Overwhelming force applied without mercy. They destroyed everything in their path and sorted through the ruins afterward. But the humans were doing something the Korvac had never seen before. They were fighting a war of precision and purpose. Every shot was calculated. Every move was planned. They weren't trying to conquer Verdania. They were trying to save it. All ships, Thekvar ordered. Attack formation. Show these mammals what Korvac strength looks like. The Korvac fleet moved into their traditional battle formation. It was an impressive sight. Dozens of massive warships arranging themselves into a wall of firepower. This formation had broken the defenses of 6 different worlds. Admiral Chen watched the enemy formation with interest. Tactical analysis. Standard Korvac battle doctrine, Admiral. They're presenting maximum firepower along a single axis. It's designed to overwhelm defenders with concentrated force. Chen nodded. And what does that tell us about them? The tactical officer thought for a moment. They've never fought an enemy that could fight back, Admiral. This formation assumes the enemy will try to hold position and trade shots. It doesn't account for mobility or unconventional tactics. Exactly, Chen said. They're bullies. They've gotten used to fighting people who can't hit back. Signal the fleet. Execute Plan Predator. The human ships suddenly changed direction. Instead of meeting the Korvac formation head-on, they scattered like wolves breaking from a pack. The Korvac had prepared for a traditional space battle. They were about to experience something entirely different. They were about to learn how humans hunted. The battle began with the Korvac learning their first lesson about humans. They never fought the way others expected them to. Instead of forming battle lines like civilized races, the human ships scattered in all directions. To the Korvac, it looked like the humans were running away in panic. War Master Thekvar smiled with satisfaction. This would be easier than he thought. All ships pursue and destroy, Thekvar ordered. Show these cowards what happens when they challenge the Korvac. But the humans weren't running. They were hunting. The destroyer lightning strike was the first to demonstrate what human tactics really meant. Captain Kim brought his ship around in a tight arc that should have been impossible for a vessel that size. The lightning strike moved like a fighter craft instead of a warship, dancing between Korvac shots that should have destroyed it. "How are they moving like that?" demanded a Korvac tactical officer. The answer was simple but terrifying. Human ships were built by a species that had learned warfare from nature's cruelest teacher, Earth itself. Every system was designed for survival against impossible odds. Every weapon was built to kill things much larger and stronger than itself. The lightning strike opened fire on a Korvac cruiser. The human weapons didn't try to overwhelm the enemy's shields with raw power. Instead, they found weak points and exploited them with surgical precision. The Korvac ship's shield generators overloaded and exploded, leaving the vessel defenseless. Captain Rodriguez's assault carrier Valkyrie demonstrated another human innovation, boarding tactics that no sane species would attempt. As Korvac ships focused on the dancing destroyers, the Valkyrie slipped close to an enemy troop transport. "Launch boarding pods," Rodriguez ordered. What happened next shocked the Korvac fleet. Instead of trying to destroy the transport, the humans were attacking it directly. Armored pods shot out from the Valkyrie and punched through the transport's hull like bullets through paper. Inside the Korvac ship, human marines poured out of the boarding pods like avenging spirits. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were veterans of Earth's colonial wars, men and women who had learned to fight in zero gravity, toxic atmospheres, and impossible conditions. Sergeant Martinez led the first squad through the transport's corridors. The Korvac soldiers they encountered were tough fighters, but they had never faced anything like humans in close combat. Martinez's squad moved like they were born for this, checking corners, covering each other, advancing with lethal efficiency. "Contact front," called Private Johnson, raising his rifle. 3 Korvac soldiers in powered armor came around the corner, energy weapons blazing. The humans should have been outgunned and outmatched. Instead, they did something the Korvac couldn't understand. They split up and attacked from 3 different directions at once. Humans had learned pack tactics from millions of years of hunting on Earth. They instinctively knew how to coordinate without speaking, how to surround prey, how to strike where the enemy was weakest. The Korvac fought like individuals. Humans fought like wolves. The armored Korvac fell under coordinated fire from 3 directions. Martinez's squad moved on, heading deeper into the ship. Their mission was simple: find the Velothi prisoners and get them out. They found the cargo holds full of cages. Inside were hundreds of Velothi civilians, including many children. The sight made the Marines forget their training for a moment. These weren't prisoners of war. They were innocents being shipped off to slavery. "Jesus Christ," whispered Johnson. "Look at them." The Velothi were in terrible condition. They had been given barely enough food and water to survive. Many were injured. The children were crying for their parents. The adults looked broken by despair. But when they saw the humans, something changed in their large, dark eyes. "Hope. It's okay," Martinez said gently, using the few words of Velothi he knew. "We're here to help. We're taking you home." The Velothi, who understood English, translated for the others. A murmur went through the cargo hold. The plant-like beings began to stand up, reaching toward their rescuers with trembling hands. Martinez activated his radio. "Captain, we've found them," requesting immediate evacuation support. "On the way, Sergeant," Rodriguez replied. "The Valkyrie is moving to dock with the transport. Get those people out of there." Meanwhile, the space battle was turning into a demonstration of why humans were called Deathworlders. The Korvac fleet was learning that their traditional tactics were useless against an enemy that refused to fight fairly. The battleship Thor's Hammer showed what human engineering could really do. When 3 Korvac heavy cruisers tried to surround it, Captain Watson didn't retreat. Instead, he did something that made the enemy tactical computers crash. He rammed. The Thor's Hammer was built like everything else humans made, to survive. Its hull was reinforced with materials forged in Earth's high-pressure environment. Its structure was designed to take damage that would destroy other ships. When it hit the first Korvac cruiser at full speed, the alien ship simply broke apart. "All ahead full," Watson ordered as his ship emerged from the wreckage. "Target the next one." The surviving Korvac cruisers tried to flee, but the Thor's Hammer was already moving to intercept. Human ships weren't just tough, they were fast. They had to be, to survive in a solar system where everything was trying to kill them. On the planet's surface, Colonel Nakamura was leading her Marines in a different kind of battle. The Iron Wolf had earned her nickname by never retreating and never giving up. Now she was facing her greatest challenge, rescuing Velothi civilians from heavily defended prison camps. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Park, "we've located the main camp. Intelligence says there are over 10,000 Velothi inside, but it's defended by an entire Korvac regiment." Nakamura studied the tactical display. The prison camp was surrounded by energy barriers and guarded by soldiers in powered armor. Most military commanders would call it impossible to assault. But Nakamura wasn't most commanders. "What's the terrain like around the camp?" she asked. "Rocky hills to the north, forest to the south. The Korvac have cleared all the approaches." Nakamura smiled. "Not all of them. Park, take Alpha Company through the forest. Make noise, draw their attention. Bravo Company will go through the hills. Charlie Company comes with me." "Where are we going, Colonel?" asked Park. "Underground," Nakamura replied. "The Velothi built this place. They love tunnels and root systems. I bet there are passages the Korvac don't know about." The assault began at dawn. Alpha Company emerged from the forest firing everything they had. The Korvac defenders immediately focused on this obvious threat, calling in reinforcements from around the camp perimeter. While the enemy was distracted, Bravo Company moved through the rocky hills like ghosts. These Marines had learned stealth on Earth, where making noise meant becoming something else's dinner. They positioned themselves on the high ground overlooking the camp, but the real attack came from below. Nakamura had found exactly what she expected, a network of root tunnels that the Velothi had used to move supplies around their city. The tunnels had been damaged by Korvac mining, but they were still passable. Charlie Company emerged inside the prison camp like nightmares from the earth. The Korvac guards had been watching the forest and hills. They never thought to look underground. The rescue operation was swift and brutal. Humans didn't take prisoners when they found evidence of crimes against children. The Korvac guards who had been tormenting Velothi families simply disappeared in the chaos of battle. "This is for the kids," Nakamura said as she personally eliminated the camp commander. Back in space, War Master Thekvar was watching his fleet fall apart. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They ignored conventional tactics. They took insane risks that somehow paid off. Worst of all, they seemed to get stronger as the battle continued. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're losing ships faster than we can count. The humans are destroying us piece by piece." Thekvar looked at the tactical display. Half his fleet was gone, and the humans had lost only 3 ships. This wasn't a battle anymore, it was a massacre. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They're just one species from one world." His science officer had been studying the human ships throughout the battle. "Sir, I think I understand now. These aren't ordinary beings. Look at their tactics, their technology, their willingness to take risks. They come from a world that tried to kill them every single day. They've spent millions of years learning how to fight impossible odds and win." Thekvar finally understood what he was facing. The Korvac had always been the apex predators in their part of the galaxy. They had never encountered anything that could match their ferocity. But humans weren't just fierce, they were desperate. They fought like cornered animals because that's exactly what they were. They were the survivors of a world that had no mercy, and they brought that ruthlessness with them to the stars. The battle was almost over, but the galaxy was just beginning to understand what it meant to face the wrath of Earth's children. The last Korvac stronghold on Verdania fell at sunset, and with it, the galaxy's understanding of humanity changed forever. Colonel Nakamura stood in the ruins of the main prison camp. Watching human medics tend to rescued Velothi, the sight should have been touching. Soldiers from a warrior race gently caring for plant-like beings who couldn't hurt a fly. But what struck observers was how naturally the humans switched from deadly fighters to compassionate healers. "Sir," Lieutenant Park reported, "we've found the command center. The Korvac were keeping detailed records of everything they did here." Nakamura followed Park into a building that had served as the Korvac headquarters. Inside, they found computers full of data about the invasion. What they discovered made even battle-hardened Marines feel sick. The Korvac hadn't just invaded Verdania for its resources. They had been conducting experiments on Velothi children, trying to understand how their plant-like biology worked. Thousands of young Velothi had been taken to research ships orbiting the planet. "Get this information to Admiral Chen immediately," Nakamura ordered. and send a rescue team to those research vessels. In space, the battle was winding down. The Korvac fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors trying to escape into hyperspace. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Cerberus as her ships hunted down the fleeing enemies. No one would be allowed to escape with Velati prisoners. The assault carrier Valkyrie had successfully docked with the largest research vessel. Captain Rodriguez led the rescue operation personally, moving through corridors filled with the evidence of Korvac cruelty. What he found in the laboratories would haunt him for the rest of his life. Hundreds of Velati children in cages, being used as test subjects for biological weapons. Adults forced to work until they collapsed from exhaustion. Families separated and told their loved ones were dead, just to study the effects of grief on Velati psychology. "Captain," Sergeant Martinez called from across the lab, "you need to see this." Rodriguez joined his sergeant at a computer terminal. The screen showed a message that had been prepared but never sent, a report to the Korvac High Command describing their experiments as a complete success. They were going to do this to other races, Martinez said quietly. This wasn't just about Verdania. This was a test run. Rodriguez felt cold fury wash over him. The Korvac hadn't just been enslaving the Velati. They had been perfecting their methods for future conquests. Other peaceful races would have suffered the same fate if the humans hadn't intervened. "Get every piece of data from this ship," Rodriguez ordered. "The galaxy needs to see what these monsters were planning." The final confrontation came when War Master Thekvar's flagship tried to escape the system. The massive dreadnought was faster than most human ships, but it couldn't outrun the destroyer Lightning Strike. Captain Kim brought his ship alongside the Korvac vessel and demanded surrender. "This is Captain Kim of the Terran vessel Lightning Strike. Your ship is surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your crew will be treated according to galactic law." Thekvar's response was predictable. "Never. The Korvac do not surrender to lesser species." The Lightning Strike's weapons spoke once. The Korvac dreadnought's engines exploded, leaving the ship dead in space. Kim's boarding teams found Thekvar on his bridge, raging at his officers about the impossibility of defeat. When human Marines entered the bridge, the War Master turned to face them. He was a massive reptilian being, covered in scales and scars from a lifetime of warfare. His eyes burned with hatred for the creatures who had destroyed his fleet. "What are you?" Thekvar demanded. "What species fights like this?" The Marine sergeant who arrested him was a quiet woman named Torres. She had grown up in the slums of New Angeles, where survival meant being tougher than anything trying to kill you. She looked at the alien warlord who had tortured children and felt nothing but contempt. "We're humans," Torres said simply. "We're from Earth, and we don't like bullies." The aftermath of the battle sent shockwaves throughout known space. News of the human victory spread faster than light through galactic communication networks. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly wanted to know everything about the Deathworlders who had single-handedly destroyed the Korvac invasion force. Admiral Chen found herself dealing with an entirely new kind of problem: fame. Her personal communication system was flooded with messages from across the galaxy. Some were congratulations from military leaders who respected what she had accomplished. Others were requests for help from races facing their own threats. But the most important message came from the Galactic Council. The ancient body that governed interstellar relations had finally decided to act. 3 weeks too late to matter. Admiral Chen, the Council's representative, said, "The Galactic Council commends your actions at Verdania. However, we must discuss the implications of unilateral military action outside established territorial boundaries." Chen's response was broadcast across the galaxy. "Counselor, while you were debating, children were dying. The Velati asked for help and no one answered except us. If that's unilateral action, then we'll wear that badge with pride." The political effects of the battle were immediate and far-reaching. The Korvac Dominion, facing rebellion on multiple worlds after news of their defeat spread, sued for peace. Their empire, built on fear and the belief that they were unbeatable, crumbled almost overnight. Other aggressive races quietly shelved their expansion plans. The hegemony of Scar canceled their invasion of the peaceful Tauri. The warlike Dracani suddenly discovered a passion for diplomatic solutions. Everyone wanted to avoid being the next target of human intervention, but perhaps the most significant change was in how other species viewed humanity. Before Verdania, humans were seen as useful but unremarkable, good fighters and decent traders but not a major galactic power. Overnight, that perception changed. Dr. Kim, working in the medical camps on Verdania's surface, saw the change firsthand. Alien medical teams that had arrived to help with the relief effort treated human personnel with a new kind of respect. Some seemed almost afraid, as if the humans might turn violent at any moment. "It's strange," Dr. Kim told her colleague. "They're acting like we're dangerous animals." "Maybe that's not entirely wrong," replied Dr. Watson, who was treating a young Valathi who had been separated from her family for weeks. "We are dangerous. The difference is we choose when to be dangerous and why." The rescued Valathi were slowly recovering from their ordeal. The plant-like beings had always been peaceful, but their experience under Korvac rule had left deep scars. Many were afraid to trust anyone, even their rescuers. It was the children who broke through first. Young Valathi began following human soldiers around the camps, fascinated by these strange beings who had saved them. The soldiers, tough men and women who had just fought a brutal war, found themselves playing games and sharing meals with alien children who looked like walking flowers. Sergeant Martinez had become particularly attached to a young Valathi named Zeftar. The child had been one of the test subjects in the research ships, but he had survived with his spirit intact. He followed Martinez everywhere, chattering in broken English about his desire to become a human warrior when he grew up. "You don't want to be a warrior," Martinez told the child gently. "Warriors fight because they have to. You should be something better, a healer or a teacher or a grower of beautiful things." But Zeftar shook his head stubbornly. "Humans saved us. Humans protect good people. I want to protect good people too." It was a conversation happening all over Verdania. The Valathi, despite their ordeal, were not becoming fearful or hateful. Instead, they were developing something they had never had before, a desire to defend themselves and others. The galaxy was changing in other ways too. Species that had been considered weak by galactic standards suddenly found themselves with a powerful protector. The quiet message went out through diplomatic channels. Humanity had extended its protection to the Valathi. Any future threats against them would be considered acts of war against Earth. 6 months after the battle, Admiral Chen received an invitation that surprised her. The Valathi had rebuilt enough of their world to hold a celebration, the first festival of new growth since before the invasion. Chen attended with a small honor guard, expecting a simple ceremony. What she found instead was a transformation that took her breath away. The Valathi had not just rebuilt their cities, they had built monuments. In the center of their capital city, where the worst fighting had taken place, grew a new forest. But this was not like their traditional gardens. This forest was designed as a living memorial to the battle that had saved their world. At the center of the memorial grew a single earth oak tree, a gift Chen had brought from her home planet. Around it, Valathi crystal formations created a garden that sang in the wind. Each crystal represented a human ship that had fought at Verdania. Each song told the story of the warriors who had come from across the galaxy to help strangers in need. "We call it the Forest of Friendship," explained Elder Veltar, the leader of the Valathi government. "It will grow for 1,000 years, reminding our children of the day the humans taught us that strength exists to protect the weak." Chen was deeply moved, but Elder Veltar had more to show her.